Welcome back to another one of Nathan Bell's commentary videos. We're heading all the way up to 100. It's going to be the centurion of commentary videos. Like, subscribe, share, do your thing. Help Nate get his ideas out there. Today, Nate wants to talk about masculinity.
Yeah, well, I do think that what we describe as or define as masculinity is subjective. How do you say that because a person has specific genitalia, that somehow drives how their behaviour will manifest? I suppose you can say, to some extent, I'd have to have a bit of a study about the research, but the men have more testosterone, and that testosterone can result, high testosterone can result in aggressive, dominant behaviour, and that perhaps men, because of their chemical wiring with testosterone, more prone towards conquest thoughts, and thoughts about dominion over others and are more assertive over others. But really what I think there's some truth to that. Certainly testosterone plays a big part in a lot of violent behaviour in men. But I also generally I think, just because you have this genitalia, that does not define in any rigid, stiff way that you will behave in any given way, or that you will adopt any particular lifestyle, or that you will have any particular reasoning about any particular issue. All throughout history, different cultures have viewed masculinity in different ways. Some cultures view men's role as to be very nurturing and supportive. Our culture tends to say that women are more supporting and nurturing, and men are more geared towards the fight for survival and providing for the family. That's a very old view, which we're now rejecting in our society. Good, it's about time. But those are gender roles, and they're not real. They're completely subjective, and if you look throughout history, different cultures have had different interpretations of what the role of women is in society and what the role of men is in society. But I do definitely think that Western males in particular identify masculinity with very dominant conquest-like behaviour, asserting themselves forcefully onto others. It's like rape culture. Men joke about taking advantage of women. This has been ingrained in language in our culture for a long time. Jokes about jokes that devalue women, jokes that talk about taking advantage of women, and all this sorts of joking amongst men has been common in our society for many, many years. And that sort of language and talk, which we would now some would call unhealthy language and talk, that sort of language and talk just continues to perpetuate the cycle of a view of masculinity that men should be dominant and take what they want. So I think a lot of it comes down to thinking about being a warrior, and I want to say the warrior can also be the defender. The warrior is not always the brutal murderer who charges onto the battlefield, slaying his enemies and defeating the enemies and then claiming conquest over their dominion and territory. The warrior can also be the protector who justly defends the tribe from unjust attack. But I think a lot of men in Australia and in the West are caught up in this offensive, conquest-orientated view of what the role of the male is in society. And a part of that is because we're a super competitive society. Now, we're a culture that super emphasises competition, but also competition exists in the natural world. It's a part of the natural order of the system of life in the universe. To some extent. So the question is this dominant conquest behaviour driven by some primordial instinct to take what you can, to be the top dog and to be dominant and the alpha and to be in charge to ensure your own survival? Is this dominant manifestation of dominance and conquest and aggression, is this a natural instinctual behaviour? And then it goes back to the thing about testosterone. Or is it just a cultural idea that we've embraced over centuries of war and conflict and men ruling the world, that men are the dominant leaders and should conquer and take from others. But we see this manifest all throughout society in men's behaviour. The prevalence of rape is huge, and that's people who rape have an attitude that they can just take what they want from others, and that others are objects to be used and abused for their own personal satisfaction. I certainly don't want to say that all Western men identify masculine behaviour with taking advantage of women or raping, but certainly I do think there's a lot of them that do as well. And I've got a huge problem with men who have that interpretation of the role of the male. As I said, it's subjective, because other cultures have had a more caring, compassionate view of what the masculine role is in society. And my view is that I want the masculine role in society to be viewed as a caretaker who cares over the community, who uses knowledge and intelligence to make good decisions that are in the best interests of others. So the role of the male should be to be sensible, and part of being sensible is being compassionate towards others and supportive of others. And we're changing our society now. We're bringing in a more supportive culture where, rather than being in constant competition to be the top dog, we're saying, no, now we want to live in a supportive society where we lift others up. So now the role of the male can change so that we lift others up, and so that it is the responsibility of the male to support others in the community rather than to crush others. So essentially what I really want to reinforce is that if you look throughout history, you can see from different cultures' interpretations that what is masculinity is subjective, and it is in flux. It is changing. It is not static. So, we don't have to take this view that the man should always be this way. There is no way that the man should be. The individual man can adopt whatever ideas or values the individual man decides to adopt, and we each have our own individual interpretation of what the role of the man is in society. So, I'm definitely glad we're abandoning what some call toxic, unhealthy masculinity. I do believe that we should be pushing to adopt a more compassionate, supportive view of what masculinity is, which isn't so super competitive and geared towards wanting dominion and conquest over others. So have a think about what your views are about the role of the male in society and how we define masculinity, and whether definitions of masculinity are subjective, and drop a comment in the comment section about masculinity.